Hello, my name is Holly Little, and you are watching or listening to the Woman to Warrior show. And it is for powerhouse women who are ready to claim their power back and to stop settling. Now, wherever in the world you are, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope and trust that you gain value from today's topic, which is something that I see so many women going through. In fact, I would say I see 100% of women going through, right? And it affects our lives. It affects the way we live our lives. It affects the success in our lives. It affects the direction of our lives, everything. And that is the topic of uncertainty. Because while no one really likes it, it is, I don't know if you've noticed, a part of being human, right? Uncertainty is a part of being human. And we all experience it to varying degrees. And as I said, it is one thing that is going to stop you. It is one thing that is going to stop you stepping into your power. It is one thing that is going to stop you having the success you want. It is one thing that's going to stop you having the life you want. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be that way because there are ways to deal with uncertainty. And one of the first ways is to perhaps just accept the fact that it is a fact of life and that it is going to come up. I mean, how many of you have been stopped by uncertainty in the past? I know I have many times. And yet, the person who can embrace the most uncertainty is the person who is going to have the most success in life. And that's really what I want to get across to you in this show, in this episode. And that is how to embrace the uncertainty. Because if you're listening to this, you are in a position in your life where you want to start having the greatest amount of success for yourself. And I get it because there have been so many times when I faced uncertainty myself. And sometimes it's just a small thing in life. Sometimes it's like social media. I remember when I first started having to post on social media, and I really didn't like doing it. I was, what if people didn't like me? What if they didn't like what I posted? What if they made fun of me? And I had all these just really crappy excuses coming up, and it all stemmed from uncertainty because I didn't have 100% knowledge that what I was going to do was going to be okay. I mean, it turns out that it is okay, but at the time I didn't know that. And so I let that stop me for such a long time. And I wonder if any of you can actually resonate with this. There's been something that you've put off for a long, long time because of that fear, that uncertainty. And yet when you started doing it, it maybe wasn't as bad as when you first had come up with the idea. And as I said, this affects so many different facets of our lives. It affects our relationships. It affects our work, our business, our parenting. It affects everything, this uncertainty and our need for certainty. And if you're not willing to do, and this is one thing I will say, if you're not willing to do something that's uncertain, you're probably not going to get very far in life, right? Even though we have this great need for certainty, most of us, as in 99.99% of us, have this great need for certainty, at least in some areas of our lives. Um, you know, we won't get anywhere unless we learn to embrace that uncertainty. And that's literally what it is. We need to embrace the uncertainty like it's our best friend, right? Because that is the way we are going to get the successes that we want. And I remember probably one of the biggest uncertain periods in my life, I think, was when we first decided to open up our gym. So for those of you who don't know, a number of years ago, say 10 years ago now, we decided, being my husband and I, decided that we were going to open up our own 24/7 gym. And oh my God, the uncertainty that was surrounding that. What if it didn't work? What if it all fell down? What if, we went broke? There was so many things around that. because we actually opened this gym on credit cards. We couldn't get a loan, so there was a huge amount of financial uncertainty surrounding it. But I look back at it, and if we had not have taken that chance and many chances since then, we would not have had the life that we've had. We wouldn't have had the relationships that we have with people. We wouldn't have had the overseas trips. We wouldn't have the house we have. So many things have come about because we decided to embrace that uncertainty. I can tell you, I wasn't all that willing to embrace that uncertainty at the time, but I'm very glad I did, because on the other side of that uncertainty is success, right? But people don't want to do that. People don't want to embrace that uncertainty, and it's simply because um, we've got an imagination, right? Have you ever experienced that? You start thinking about, and I did, when going back to the gym example, you start thinking about all the things that could go wrong, all of the things that could go wrong when you want to try something new, when you want to branch out into a new path. And part of that reason is the reason why imaginations kick in like that is because we have what is called a negativity bias. And now, negativity bias is something that comes from the evolutionary process, or so they say. And it's to do with the fact that when we were cavemen or cavewomen, or however long ago, it it served us to notice the bad things. It served us to notice the saber-toothed tiger, not the butterflies, because the saber-toothed tiger could kill us. And so many things I imagine back then could have killed us. So we developed this negativity bias where we straight away go to worst case scenario. And that's where our imaginations kick in. Have you ever thought about doing something and then, oh no, I can't do that because, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if that's happened? Before you know it, the whole world's blown up based on this one decision that you made that you're actually not going to follow through now. All right. And it's kind of like the thought feeling loop. So you have a thought about something and you go, like for us opening the gym, oh, that would be good. Yeah, well, I reckon we could do that. And then at first you might be a little bit excited, but then it's like, oh, the doubt starts kicking. That negativity bias starts to tip into your thoughts, and you start feeling a little strange feeling in the pit of your stomach, almost like fear. Well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And that leads to another thought, which leads to another feeling, which leads to another. It's this endless loop of thoughts and feelings that are all quite negative, and all because we have, almost like some people have a need to have this uncertainty. And it always reminds me of a quote. I think the author's name is Mark Twain. He's a very famous author and American author. He wrote books like Huckleberry Finn um, back many, many years ago. And he said that the worst things in his life had never actually happened to him. The worst things in his life have never actually happened to him. And I 100% get that. My imagination has done it all. Okay. And so if that's all the case, if we've got this need for uncertainty, and it's going to come up no matter what we do, and it's all very well saying but how do we then embrace the uncertainty? And I actually can't tell you that. All I know is that if you want to do something and it scares the pants off you, then maybe you should go in that direction, because it means you're doing something new. It means you're doing something different. And something new and something different is going to get you onto a different path to where you're currently at, which I'm assuming is why you're listening to this, right? Because you want to get on a different path. You want to create a different future than the one you have. So that uncertainty that you're feeling it's a signpost saying, yep, you're in the right direction. It's going to feel like shit, but you're heading in the right way. And so it's probably worth exploring if you're in that frame of mind. And, the possible results are likely to be exactly what you want them to be, and they're not going to be disastrous. But you're never going to know unless you give it a go, right? As I said, if we hadn't have, put up with all that uncertainty with opening the gyms, because quite frankly, we'd never done anything like that before. We'd never had a business like that before. We just thought, oh yeah, we could do that. We could give it a crack, right? So that's what we did. And in fact, like, even after we opened the gyms, it was that uncertainty still came up all the time. I remember my first, or our first, one of our first business coaches. It was a mastermind we joined, and it was quite expensive. I think at the time for both of us to do, it was probably about $80,000. And then there was travel involved in that. And I had no idea how we were going to afford it. In fact, there were times when I would be reconciling the business accounts and, having to go sit under the table in a comatose position for a little while afterwards because it was just so confronting and so uncertain. But it turned out to be the best thing that we ever did. We had this idea that we needed that help, and if we hadn't have done that, I don't think our business actually would have gotten to where it was. In fact, we ended up creating a seven-figure business. So, embracing the uncertainty then was well worth the effort. Um, and whatever area of your life you're thinking about now, what I would say to you is it worth it? Is it worth staying stuck where you are or taking that risk of uncertainty and potentially living a life that you really want? And you're the only one who truly knows that. And there's a really good book, and I imagine many of you have probably already read this, but if you haven't, go out and read it. It is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And essentially, that's the only way forward. Probably not the answer some of you are hoping for, but really that's all there is to it. Feel the fear and do it anyway, because the fear is always going to come up. And as I said, it is a signpost to say you are on the right path. Okay. And I guess you've got to back yourself as well. You have to back yourself from what you're doing, because that's important. Of course, you have to back yourself. You have to have certainty that what you're doing, you can do and get through. You may still be uncertain about the outcome, but your certainty in your own abilities, really tapping that's like the frequency of success. Okay. So this actually always reminds me of talking about uncertainty and not taking risks to get us to where we want to go. Always, always reminds me of this story. And I'm just trying to remember it now. So imagine this scenario. There is an old man and he's near the end of his life. He's dying. He's on his deathbed. And as he is dying, then he gets visited that evening by ghosts of his past. And they are the ghosts of the people he could have been, ghosts of the life he could have had. And the first one visits him that night and says, I became a doctor. I helped so many people and it was wonderful. It was a dream life. And the dying man said, I wish I could have become a doctor, but, I never had the opportunity. And the doctor version of him said, well, you did. You were given the intelligence to be smart enough, but you were frightened you'd fail in your studies, so you didn't do it. And then later on that evening, another ghost visits him. And he tells him how wonderful his life was, how wealthy his life was, how much money he had in his life, and all the places he could go and things he could do and have. And the man said, I would have loved to have had money in my life, but I lived not much above the poverty line. I never had those same opportunities. And the ghost said to him, he said, but you did. He said, when you were 32, your boss offered you to buy into the company and you said no. And then years later, that company was worth millions. And the dying man, he said, yeah, I remember. I was too scared to take that financial risk. And then the third ghost comes and visits him. And the third ghost showed him a photo. And it was a woman and 3 girls. He said, this is my wife and my daughters. They are the loves of my life. And I had such a beautiful life with them. Created so many amazing memories. How could I have any regrets at the end of my life? And the dying man said, I would have loved that, but I never met anybody. And that ghost version of him said, well, you did. When you were 19, you met her at a school dance, but you were too scared to take the chance to ask her to dance with you. And of course, then the man dies with a life and a song unfulfilled. And I always get a little bit goosebumpy when that means a made up story, but it's so you can see it, can't you? You can see how those moments in time, those sliding door moments where we have the opportunities that are put in front of us to create better lives, stop because of our own fear of uncertainty and what that will mean in our lives. And I wonder what, your life would look like, your relationships would look like, your business would look like, your work would look like. I wonder what all of those things would look like if you had taken the chance and embraced this uncertainty when those events and opportunities came up. So when you are looking at something different, remember, embrace that uncertainty and feel the fear in doing it anyway, because the uncertainty is not going to go away, not until you do the thing. So you may as well give it a go, right? Okay, ladies, I hope this has been useful for you. I've really enjoyed bringing this episode to you. I could actually talk about this for quite some time, and I trust you can see how much it can potentially hold you back if you're not aware of it. But remember, as I say, awareness is the pathway to transformation. So now you're aware of it, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Write it down, talk it out. Think of that thing you've been avoiding because you're not certain about it, and do it. And when you do, let me know. And I would love it if you could give me a review, give me a like on this episode. It would mean the world to me. And if you're looking for a program to do that will help you level up and help you embrace that uncertainty, then you should probably do the Quantum Woman Rising. It's an amazing program I have, 12 weeks. It's just amazing. Look it up. Send me a message and we'll hook you up with that. So have a wonderful day, ladies, and I will see you in the next episode.